Barrett, I hope you're having a great Monday. Welcome into the game here in Tuscaloosa.
I'm doing great, Ryan. How are you?
Good, man. We got a ton of things to talk about, so let's get started here. Auburn falls down to Tennessee. Your thoughts on the performance down in Lee County?
That basically all the problems are not fixable at Auburn. And really, I mean, I think when you look at the way they've played all year, that was kind of common sense, but the problem is so pronounced. You know, the offensive line issue, it's not like they've got, an offensive line that is, inconsistent or, building or, getting comfortable. They're flat out bad. And that might even be a compliment because at times they've looked god-awful. Cole Kublik, who I'm sure you know, played offensive line at Auburn, I think he said it best. It's like, he said they're not missing assignments. They're actually playing the way they should be playing. They're just really bad at it. So, they can't get over it. And you saw that against Tennessee. You saw it last week against Mississippi State. You saw it against Southern Miss and Arkansas. You saw it against Washington. And when you're actually executing and you still suck, then that's just who you are.
So when you look at it, how much of this do you think is a reflection on Gus and his coaching staff?
I think a lot of it is they haven't had recruits that have, lived up to expectations. And the ones that they have had are young. Calvin Ashley, I think, is going to be a good player. I mean, he's got the talent. He's, still learning. He's a freshman. So it's too early for him. But really outside of him, where have the superstar offensive linemen come from? Because they're not there. Calvin Ashley is probably the only one of note that they've got over the last few years. So I think it's a reflection on Gus in that sense. I think another part of it is Herb Hand, who no longer is there because he was in charge of recruiting all these guys and clearly did a poor job. And I think his idea was to, go after guys that he didn't have to fight for and then coach them up, but nobody can coach him up. I mean, I think J.V. Grimes is a very good offensive line coach. I think he knows how to develop talent. There just ain't any talent there. So, I think it is on the coaching staff. And I think, the whole criticism of Gus and Chip Lindsey, I get it. I mean, they're the people you point to. It's just like, CEO of a company. But I don't really know what else they can do this year because the problem is on them, but the solution just doesn't exist this year. I think in other situations, you could maybe find a way to scheme around it. I think Auburn had done that in the past at times too. When they had a mobile quarterback, this is the year. I mean, I don't think Auburn's offense is ever, in need of a mobile quarterback just in general, but this specific year, it probably is because if you can't block anybody, you have to give them something different to look at, and a mobile quarterback would do that.
There's a lot of talk here, and I don't know if that is just what it is. It's talk, but we're talking about a contract that's $32 million. Do you think all this is foolish talk that this is being brought up by the fans and that they may have signed Gus a little bit too quick, but they really didn't have a choice? I mean, he was flirting with other people. Do you think we're really too early to be talking about contract and buyouts, or do you see he can wait to ride this ship out?
Yeah, it's too early. Very few schools are Alabama, Ohio State, Clemson. That just, on their down years, they're still 10-win programs. And for Alabama, that might be selling them short a little bit. So teams like Auburn that are sort of a step down, they go through these years. Notre Dame went 4-8 2 years ago. TCU went 4-8 in 2013. Those things happen. Auburn went 3-9 in 2012, and we'd all argue, that those teams are not. They were much better than that in terms of talent. Sometimes things just don't click. Florida State last year is a perfect example. Florida State this year could be a perfect example too. So those things happen. That's not to excuse them, but that sort of is life. So, signing Gus Malzahn, I don't necessarily think the flirting part was as much of a deal as, Gus just recognizing and Jimmy Sexton recognizing what the market value is. And the market value for a guy who has won multiple division titles, has been to a national championship game, is around that number, give or take. So, that's his market value. You may agree with it or not, whether he's worth it, but his resume is what it is, and so you have to pay it. And so again, look, Brian Kelly was on a hot seat 2 years ago. He got off it temporarily. That's the way life is right now in college football. If you're at one of those schools that is sort of a little bit of a step down from the big boys, the big three, so to speak, you sort of you have that pressure to live up to that contract every single year, and it's almost impossible to do that. So I think if you start seeing a prolonged stretch where this stuff, is happening, then yeah, you can say that Auburn overpaid and they need to get out. But these years, I hate to excuse them again, but they do happen. They happen to every team at some point or another. It happens to Georgia with Mark Richt. It happened to Georgia with Kirby Smart in his first year. So you just have to ride it out at times if you're one of those schools that, again, is a step down from Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State.
Barrett, let's go to LSU for a couple of minutes and spend some time thinking about this win. Did you see it coming? Did you think that LSU would be able to play up to this level where they would knock off the number 2 team in college football?
No, I didn't think that they could do what they did because, Joe Burrow made some great plays, but I think the biggest thing was that everything that Georgia did, LSU had an answer, and everything Georgia did to punch, LSU counter-punched harder. I mean, I don't know I think it was the first quarter, into the first quarter, Georgia went on like a 10-play drive where they were just absolutely mauling LSU, just nonstop. I think they got a field. They might have that was their touchdown drive, but LSU did the same thing. They went right down the field. And so, I think that was the surprising thing, is that it was Georgia that wasn't multidimensional. And when you have Jake Fromm and that talented group of receivers and an offensive line that is pretty good, that's the surprising part. Because I think if you would have gone into that game and said, okay, one of these offenses is going to be completely one-dimensional and not be able to do much, I think 10 out of 10 people would say, oh, that's LSU. And it wasn't. It was Georgia. And I think that was the surprising part to me.
Let me ask you about this LSU team, because you look at what they've got left. You think they can win out? I mean, maybe that's just an easy way to ask that question. Do you think they can win out? I mean, can they find a way to beat Alabama? Can they find a way to beat Mississippi State? Can they find a way to beat Texas A&M, Arkansas? I'm kind of giving them that one. Can this LSU team win and make it to Atlanta?
No, I don't think so, because, every single game that they've played has been played the way they want to play it. Florida was, and they lost it, but they still played it the way they want to play it. You look at how Alabama rolled this year, right? You're going to have to score, if you're LSU, probably 35 to 40 points to win, or even have a chance. And they can do that when they want to. They can do that when they're comfortable, and they've done that when they're comfortable. I don't know if they can do that when they need to, not against a team that knows it can put a team in that situation. So because of that, I don't think they can beat Alabama. So, no, I don't think they win out. And then you look at the rest of their schedule, too. Texas A&M's run defense is the best in the SEC. So if they do what they've been doing all year long, can Joe Burrow pick that defense apart? Certainly more likely than Alabama, but still, if Kellen Mond's hot, we'll see what happens. So, no, I don't think they can win out. They've done a very good job of playing the way they want to play. But if there's one team on the schedule that is better at determining pace and style of football, and that's Alabama. And I'm not sure LSU can match up with a team that can score 40 points and will score 40 points even on good defense.
We're talking to Barrett Sallee, CBS Sports National College Football Analyst, a part of ESPNU on Sirius XM on the College Channel 84 that does a Sunday show. And I believe I catch it all the time, but it's 9 until noon or 9 until 1. Am I right on that? As far as the time?
9 until noon Eastern, running off 3 hours of sleep Sunday morning. So me and Tom Luganville get pretty dumb during Sunday morning.
No, you guys sound great. I mean, it's a great way to catch up, because you know this. When you cover just one team, there's a lot of things that you miss because you're just dialed in and you're there 3 hours prior. And 2 hours afterwards. Let me ask your thoughts about Alabama and Missouri. 39-10. 39-10, Alabama gets the win, but some areas certainly can improve. Your thoughts on Alabama's game here in Tuscaloosa?
Well, it's crazy to think that in a 29-point victory, that Alabama might have had its worst game. I mean,
wow.
It could be, and that's a compliment to where Alabama is right now. All the injuries. Tua had his worst day. Now you can say that a lot of that was his knee injury before he left the game, and it might be true, but they had some problems by Alabama standards, which is a whole different level. So the injury thing was concerning. It sounds like pretty much everybody's okay, so that's good. But I think it was I would say Alabama probably brought its D game against Missouri and still won by 29 and covered. So that's where Alabama is right now. It's not just will they win, it's will they cover. And if you're into late game, stressful, garbage touchdown or field goal nerves, then Alabama's your team because they dance around that number every single week.
Let's look ahead when we talk about Tennessee. Playing with a lot of confidence, and maybe that's what we overlooked in their 30-24 victory over Auburn. We've spent a lot of time talking negative about Auburn, but really, you look at them. I mean, they play with a lot of confidence going to Lee County. I mean, you look at the Tennessee Volunteers. Can they throw up some hurdles? Vegas does not think so. 28.5 points according to the experts in the desert. Do you think Tennessee can make this a second-half game?
28.5 points is like the go-to number these days.
It is.
Alabama.
It is. I mean,
it's unbelievable.
But you know what? You know the crazy part is how close they are. It's always blows my mind how close.
The last four games. Like I do SEC picks, right? The
Sure.
last 4 games, I've been completely in tune to the final 2 minutes of Alabama football, in blowouts, trying to figure out exactly if they're going to win or not, if they're going to cover or not. No, Tennessee is, they have. You're right. They have a ton of confidence. They really, you go back for the last month, really ever since the Florida game, they played smart. They played disciplined. They played good enough defensively to keep them in game. They were in the Georgia game and had a little bit of a puncher's chance in the second half, so they're not quitting. They do hit you hard. So, and Garantano, I mean, I think a lot of folks around that program said that wasn't a surprise what he did against Auburn because it's been a long time coming for him. So, Tennessee to me is a solid football team in the sense that they're generally now, Florida game is an exception, they're generally not going to do anything stupid, and they're going to play smart. And the talent issue is the problem, and Pruitt's going to fix that, but it's not there yet. I think everybody knows it. So if you're going to beat Tennessee, or if you're going to lose to Tennessee, you've got to make, and you're an elite team, you've got to make really, really dumb decisions and dumb mistakes. Auburn's not an elite team or a good team, so it doesn't matter against Tennessee. But, I don't think they're going to give you anything, with the exception of that Florida game. So, they're capable of hanging around for a little while. But beyond that, I think, no, I mean, they're not going to put up much of a challenge.
Going back to Georgia here for just a minute, do you see some problems in that team? Did LSU expose them where, they may not be as strong as what we thought, or do you see this team bouncing back and, if they win out, they go to the SEC title game, they win that, they've got a great chance of going to the college football playoffs. What do you see in this dog team?
They got exposed a little bit. I think they got, into Jake Fromm's head, and for whatever reason, Jake couldn't get over it. And that's really new. We hadn't seen that before. He's always been able to sort of maintain his composure. I mean, even in the national championship game, he wasn't great in the second half, but he was able to keep himself calm. He hit that long touchdown at Tamiko Hardman right after Alabama went down and scored. So, you haven't seen Jake Fromm have that kind of day. And really, I don't know where it's coming from, whether it just is one of those freak things or maybe he's looking over his shoulder at Justin Fields. Who knows? But I think Georgia's earned the benefit of the doubt in the sense that you can count on them at least not quitting, and what their top-end talent is. So I expose flaws, a little bit. Because I think LSU caught Georgia at the right time in terms of, the running game not necessarily being consistent, save for that one drive. They just stacked the box, and Georgia couldn't do anything, and Fromm had a bad day. So, good teams are good teams. I think, it's funny to say you expose problems because really Alabama is at a different level. And I think that's kind of skewed how I guess we view teams that are, in the top 5, top 10. Nobody's Alabama. So everybody else in every single year, except for maybe a few outliers, are teams like Georgia that have some issues, but they're still really, really good. Same thing with Ohio State. Very rarely do you have a team like Alabama that, save for field goal kicking, you have absolutely no problems. And maybe, I guess, now punting, since they had to punt last week.
And they were not very good at it, by the way. It's 12-yard
No,
punt.
you're not. I don't know if that counted as a punt, honestly.
Yeah, I've never kicked a punt or I've never punted the ball. And let me see if I can get the verbiage right. I've never punted the ball, but I think I could get 12 yards. I don't know. I'm not 100% confident, but I think I could get 12 yards out of it.
Well, he was cold. It's been a while.
That's right. Yeah. You're right. 100%. You got to work on those drops. Find a way to mess up on third down just where you can get the punter an opportunity in live action. No, I think you're 100% correct.
Right. Got to get everybody involved. Just bad coaching by Nick Saban.
Barrett Sallee, find him on the Twitter account. Join those 75,000 SEC fans that follow him straight up. Barrett Sallee, connect with him, cbssports.com, cbssports.com. As always, Barrett, we appreciate your time. Thank you, sir.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.